So let me do it before we go to the keynote, do a quick check on what we got. We had some problems with the chat, but it's, you know, it's live, it's digital, but everything is going to be sorted out. There you go. It's hard to watch for me. So there you go. Some people having some issues, but normally that should be fixed by now. So again, let me know, how pumped are you for OpenSlava? Let me know 1 to 10. And maybe I also asked it last year, but I think it's a really interesting one because you see the OpenSlava community expanding and expanding and expanding. Where are you watching from? Where are we are so used to, like Tomas said, in this remote environment. So where are you right now? Let me know the country, or are you at home, the office, in your man cave, or whatever you're watching from. Let me know in the chat, and I want to see if this whole thing is going. Now, it has been teased already a bit. We're going to start off with our keynote speaker, and I look at backstage, and he's getting ready. He's jumping in, and he's going to talk about the future of cloud, which we're going to elaborate throughout the 3 days. And he calls it the future of cloud, a continuum of opportunities. And the man I'm talking about, I'm really excited about this. You're thinking like, Marnik, you're excited about everything, but I'm really excited about this. Why? Because I'm probably one of the few people here, unless you are now letting me know in the chat that you're also from Belgium or maybe the Netherlands, that can pronounce his name correctly. I already hear him laughing. It's Koenraad, but he goes by Koen. So if you can pronounce that, you're already his big fan. And why can I pronounce it? Why can I pronounce it right? Because we're both from the same country. I'm from Belgium. I'm also live broadcasting this from Belgium. But he's the EU Cloud First lead, global tech lead and resources at Accenture. So he's the man to start this keynote. He is Belgium, unless he corrects me, but he has been working all over the world. And a good friend of mine always said, Marnik, you sleep in Belgium, but you live in the world. And Koen is one of those people that are really living by that quote. To a bit background information, because you can look up on openslava.sk what he's really all about, but he worked all over the world. He's in the lead for Cloud Accenture. He's going to share his key findings on Accenture research. The best practices is what he's going to show in his keynote. And he likes cycling. Now, for the people that are not familiar with Belgium, cycling is a bit, you're obliged to like cycling in Belgium. So you get born and then your parents have to sign a form that says that you're gonna like cycling, and that's the national sport in our country. So I'm super happy that he's also a cyclist. Koen, I'm gonna check with you backstage. Are you ready to rock the stage? Because if you are, I'm gonna announce you and I'm gonna give you the floor. I don't see you in the backstage, but you're gonna pop up. There he is. All into Halloween, all into Halloween. So Koen, give me the single. Are you ready? I'm gonna give the audience over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, talk about it. You ready?
Absolutely, born ready.
He's born ready. So you might not be hearing this, but he's born ready. So without further ado, the future of cloud, a continuum of opportunities. Our keynote, our first speaker of OpenSlava 2021, Koen Schelfaut. Give him a digital applause. Koen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I think I'll first start with my first task, which is trying to share my screen, right? So that's always going to be the interesting bit. Let me see if the technology kind of works. You guys should be able, if someone can give me a cue that you're seeing my screen.
We're seeing your screen. We're seeing your screen.
Super. Well, Marnik, I was very impressed that you kind of said you can pronounce my first name right. The last name is typically the one that people struggle with as well.
Yeah.
Bit of background of little Jack here behind me. Number one, kind of, he's always keeping my tie in good shape. Second thing is, my boss told me go and kill the competition in there. So that's the last one who entered my room. So joking aside and getting to more serious topics, number one, delighted to be with you. I hope next year we can do that physically because, well, the world is kind of missing me a little bit. I like to kind of be with the folks and not just sit and present and talk to you from behind a computer screen. So what I'll talk about today is really about the future of cloud. So what do we mean by this? It's actually about the vision on how do we kind of go from a vision to a reality and how do we translate it into value. So today, the keynote will not be about technical migrations, but it's really about what does it mean to live in the cloud? What does it mean for a client to be in the cloud? So let's kind of move on, right? Talking about Europe and the cloud. I think we've seen with kind of the pandemic that Europe kind of came to an inflection point. Working from home, getting kind of much and much pressure on like bandwidth, the latency kind of issues. So it really has driven a lot of our customers to move to the cloud. But what we've seen that the emphasis was mainly on the migration from, well, the on-prem to the cloud centers, but not much more than that. Right? And there are a couple of reasons for this. And we also kind of think that we need to change our narratives to our customers. And this is what I wanted to share you a little bit today on what is it exactly, right? How do you drive value out of the cloud and don't just see it as kind of a cost optimization means. So let's look at a little bit of like data which we got from a study that we did with more than 1,000 of our European clients. Let's start with the good news. Right? So within Accenture, we always kind of try to have a friendly competition with my colleagues from North America and from the other regions. So here's the good news. That is that like we're slightly ahead of the others. We're slightly ahead of kind of the US by about 5%. But what does that mean being slightly ahead? So if we look at like how much did we adopt cloud, right? But very generically. So software as a service, but also platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, right? So cloud in its generality, we're slightly ahead and kind of leading the pack, right? We also kind of hear that from 90% of our clients that moving to the cloud did realize cost savings to them, right? And for people that are working from you in the cloud space, you know that there's been a debate on, well, did cloud really kind of bring the cost savings anticipated? But on average, people say, well, we kind of got 10% savings out of it. But I said, this is the good news, right? Which probably also means there's a little bit kind of less good news. So look at the stack of like the technology stack and the maturity or the more kind of advanced technologies, what you see is that we're ahead of kind of the rest, but it is mainly on the technical side, right? About technical migrations and also about security. But look at all the rest, right? So if we look at, are we leading in big data? Are we leading in artificial intelligence and algorithms? Are we truly changing business processes on the back of like logic that the cloud kind of enables us, right? And where we sit on all that data. Are we leading the pack on connected vehicles, connected refrigerators, connected devices, right? Well, the answer is no. You can really kind of see here, like if you look at containerization, like on rewriting your apps and making it all kind of containerized, we're about 40–50% behind like North America and like China. Right? So the good news is we are adopting kind of cloud. The good news is also there's a lot of kind of opportunity for us. The bad news is that Europe is a bit lagging behind if we compare it to the global world and to the global scale. Now, some more statistics here, right? What I find quite shocking that we ask our kind of customers about, how do you see cloud? What's important for you? We're the only region that's still answering to that question with a top one answer, lowering operating costs, right? Which I think is the obvious thing. The ones which of course are much more interesting are the answers from the US and from China, where the US is saying, well, it's about using cloud technologies to increase customer value, or China that says like, well, we'd like to use cloud to speed up the introduction of new products into the market, right? So you see with us that we're the only people looking at the cost equation side, which means there's a great opportunity because you'll hear it more from me today. It's not about a cloud, but it's about the rain. It's the rain that creates the value. It's not the cloud per se. Right? You see the other ones here, right, that our customers are saying in Europe, well, it's all about increased customer value as well, but about financial growth, about agility, flexibility, elasticity, right, etc. But you don't really, for me, it's really striking that I don't see the cloud as a means to transform businesses. Now, next question would be, how long would it then take for us to kind of be at that same level? And here's a little bit of the strange thing. Our research is showing something else, which we didn't kind of put in this deck. But the question to our customers was also like, how much are you going to be spending on cloud and cloud technologies? And what you see for Europe is that actually our customers are saying they're going to be reducing the spend on cloud. And it's quite logical because they still kind of think, well, if I migrated all my stuff to kind of a hyperscaler data center, then I'm done with it. So I can slowly start reducing kind of my spend. Now, if you do this, it would take Europe up to 3 years to be at par with North America. Well, needless to say, right? Number one, I would be losing my bet with my North America colleagues, saying that like Europe is kind of really, really superior to them. So that would not be nice. But more seriously, it would mean a competitive disadvantage for European companies to kind of, well, introduce products faster to the market, change entire industries, change the way how we do business, how we ensure ourselves. And I will be sharing some examples like of typical, well, actually not typical, but leading customers in this space that have taken kind of cloud to a new level. So up to 3 years, unless we kind of have the right narrative, we change the way on cloud, how cloud is being perceived, and also that our clients are willing to kind of reinvest the savings money into reshaping their industries and reshaping their businesses. Now, why are clients, so what are our clients basically saying? So why the hell am I not kind of doing it, right? Well, complexity of business and operational change. What do we mean by this? Well, number one, Europe is not a country. I went on vacation to Italy and it was interesting. I saw some of our people or our colleagues from the other side of the sea saying, I visited Europe. Well, I always need to explain to them that the European community by itself is 24 countries, that we speak 20 languages. And if you then add, I would say, like our friends from the UK, and we look at a broader Europe, like with Norway, etc. in it, we're roughly talking about 50 different kind of countries. So people are saying, well, we're more complex. So when we look at cloud, when we look at business, right, we need to, it's not just one shot. There are complexities in there. Security and compliance risks. And I'll talk in a minute, right, about like data sovereignty and sovereign cloud, which is emerging, right? So people are saying, well, I'm not sure if I really, really want my data to sit with like North American companies because my data could be accessed. I could be losing control over my data. And especially in our public space or the European community or in defense or police departments, right? People are really kind of worried and moving their stuff to the cloud. So the whole thing about security and compliance risks is quite prevailing. Well, you can definitely see that's the number one reason, you know, for the US and for China, but it doesn't kind of seem to hold them back to kind of do more with cloud than just technical migrations. An interesting one for me is also misalignment between business and IT. Right? I call it the watermelon effect, where IT always says, I'm doing a great job because all the KPIs are green. And the business says, well, it's not about solving kind of issues, it's for preventing issues, so we're not happy with the service. So same thing, right? But it's like green on the outside, red on the inside. We see this also in cloud. I hear a lot of business people saying, well, why should I worry about cloud, right? So the best kind of cloud is the one where I don't even know I'm running on the cloud because IT just needs to shift stuff, right? And this is, again, I think the education that we kind of need to bring in all of you, right? Be it even on the technical space, even if you're like a full stack engineer or if you're a business analyst, I think we have an obligation to think about use cases and look at how do we reinvent entire businesses on the back of the cloud. Now, I just said security, data sovereignty, sovereign cloud, major kind of topic for Europe. Like, what do we mean by sovereign cloud? We see through initiatives like Gaia X and like data hubs within countries that people are saying, well, you know what, we need to find a way that the data can only be kind of stored, manipulated, accessed, or that has been upgraded with kind of new things from like Google or Microsoft Azure within a country with national people. And you've seen recent announcements, I think, on the news of like some of our, the MAGs, or I call them the amigos. It's like the Amazons, the Microsofts, IBM, Red Hat, VMware, Google, Oracle Cloud, ServiceNow, MongoDB, and I may be missing on quite a few. But it's really about how do they team up with a national player to develop very specific cloud services, which can control identity and access management, build new sovereign cloud solutions, use data which they would like to keep within the country to an advantage to create like weather forecasts for farmers by connecting all the thermometers in a country together, and creating a data space and a data hub on a national basis. So for us, that cloud sovereignty, none of us has like, you know, a magic ball. So we don't know if this is going to be mandatory, if it's going to be regulatory, or if it's going to be advisory. But I can tell you, I'm having a lot of discussions with telco operators on saying, well, does that mean if I'm a national telco that I should be entering kind of data hosting in a way and work together with the system integrator or with technical providers to offer these type of services? So cloud sovereignty is a very important topic for us here in Europe, and probably also will scale beyond kind of Europe over time. Now, I mentioned it before, it's not about a cloud, but it's about the rain that comes out of the cloud, which is giving life. That's the value that we want to target about. And let's get into some examples on what it means to kind of create value from the cloud. Well, number one, I said about it's not just about migration. So we introduced kind of at Accenture the topic, we call it the cloud continuum and the cloud continuum players. What do we mean by that? So in the past, we saw, well, we moved from distributed computing to public cloud, which was all about bringing resources together, centralizing resources, getting economy of scale. But it was all very much like single cloud, single kind of, well, data center, like latency, elasticity, all the good stuff. And then it kind of stops, right? What we see is that the world is going to be hybrid. And we have like great speakers in the next days, right? And people like from Red Hat, from VMware. Well, the world is going to be hybrid, right? We will move to multi-clouds, right? Where not everything is going to be sitting with Microsoft or with kind of Google. It will be integrated. It will be multi-cloud. We will have combinations of private clouds, sovereign clouds, public clouds, edge clouds, 5G as an enabler. It will be about technical work, but it will also be about artificial intelligence. It will be about business transformation. So what we mean by cloud continuum is companies that embrace a cloud first mentality, which is really saying this is not a one-shot exercise, but it is a fundamental change in the future that will change the way how we work, but also the products that companies will be offering and the talent transformation, like how to move from like a single stack engineer to multi-stack engineer. So this is really what we mean by cloud continuum. It's companies who embrace the full flow. Where are we today? Well, very brief on this. Only 1 out of 10 European customers really thinks of themselves as being a player in a cloud continuum space. 9 out of 10, they say, well, we're somewhere in cloud, either through software as a service or by migrating stuff to the cloud, but they don't organize themselves around a cloud-powered business. Now, let's take an example of one that does work in this way, IKEA. IKEA is really kind of a great example. And I jotted down a number of things here on my pages on what IKEA has been doing. Well, everyone knows IKEA. I learned last week that like every baby that is conceived in Europe, well, there's a 20% chance it was in an IKEA bed, right? So just a little Wikipedia kind of fact. There may be regional differences, but I think 20% is already a big number. But what did IKEA do? Well, they were hit majorly by the pandemic, right? So everyone likes to go and eat the Swedish balls, which you use, actually you use buying furniture as the excuse to eat the Swedish balls. And then they closed the shops with a pandemic. So everything went through kind of online ordering and internet ordering. And these were unprecedented volumes. So IKEA's infrastructure could not handle this. So they had to move everything to the cloud. But it wasn't about moving it to the cloud so to handle volumes. At the same time, which they did is they doubled down on the click and collect option, making sure people still got their furniture or whatever they wanted to have. You could kind of order it. You could come and collect it, just minimizing people in the shops. What they also did is they closed down some shops and turned them into warehouses, because we needed to kind of have stock which was close to the customers. So we need online stock. We need to have the flexibility to convert stores into warehouses. We need to introduce click and collect and ordering systems. What they also did is, because they had really kind of all this online data of ordering, applying machine learning and artificial intelligence on it to spot patterns. So that people got recommendations about like furniture that matches other stuff. So I think IKEA like went from very fastly kind of making sure they could allow the big volumes by moving to the cloud, but by then applying data analytics and becoming really kind of a cloud-led, data-driven company. So they're a great example of a company that is embracing all the aspects kind of cloud, both from a technical and from a value side. Now, what does it mean, right? So how can we unlock kind of success and move towards this kind of value based approach around kind of cloud? So let's just kind of give an example of each of the 4 pillars that we see kind of coming back. One of them is make sure that the money that you save through the technical migration is reinvested through kind of a value business case. Very important. So it's not just about a cost saving, but it's about freeing up money to reinvest it in building these new kind of business models that we kind of talked about. An example which I was very kind of closely involved in from that aspect, Landis & Gyr. Landis & Gyr is a company that makes the smart meters that are in your garage, which are transmitting your real-time electricity consumption to the provider. Right? So the first discussion we had was, well, we need to kind of cut down costs. So we need to kind of move the data center where all these kind of millions of readings continuously kind of are streaming into. We need to move it to the cloud and we need to save costs. Well, we changed the discussion together with Landis & Gyr and we said, well, it's not about like shifting the data to the cloud and realize the savings, but you know now from every household that has your smart meter, what is their consumption pattern? You will know if people are doing their laundry like at 12 o'clock or at 9 o'clock in the evening, right? So imagine that you use this data, you create apps for households that are saying, well, based on your electricity consumption, here are some recommendations for you. And by the way, it would save you 500 euros a year on your electricity bill if you do your laundry at night, right? So this is using the power of the cloud and the access of the data to really introduce new services to people and contribute to sustainability, because if we produce less energy, it will help through CO2 emissions, it will help companies and the planet to become more sustainable, right? So there's a higher purpose than just moving stuff and smart meter data to the cloud. So that's an example of a company who's using the savings and reinvesting them to kind of define new business models. Second pillar, right? Market for a unique preference with balance, trust, and control. What does that mean, right? I said it before, like there is no such thing anymore as like a single cloud and a whole company runs on it. That the world is going to be hybrid. But that also means that we kind of need to make choices, right? And one of these choices is going to be around how do we create trust so that people trust the cloud, right? And we don't need to fear that it's like somewhere floating in kind of space and we don't have control and access over it anymore. And with balance, we kind of mean, well, this kind of multi-cloud scenario, private between kind of public, but also what do I do with Google? What do we do with Amazon? What do I do with the rest of clouds and create APIs and services? So an example I want to show here is Siemens. What does Siemens do? Siemens actually, well, they're a customer of ours, but they're also kind of, well, creating their own cloud services. So they created something called MindSphere. MindSphere is technology which they apply on all the PLCs and the circuits which they make, which allows customers to kind of get real-time information, predict downtime from machines, failures, overheating, whatever it is, right? So they first developed this based on AWS. They then created the version on Microsoft Azure. They now released one which is based on Google, right? So this is an example on how, like, a company is not really locking in its customers with kind of one provider, but is creating the balance and the trust and the control so that customers have choices. There's no lock-in, and they can use the software which is integrated with their own strategy, not related to kind of Siemens, like about how to interact with like an SAP on Azure, for example. So it's all about this balance and introducing new services which are not providing kind of lock-in for the future. So I think that's a great example what Siemens has been doing on creating balance. The third one is establishing cloud practices. What do we mean with a cloud practice? It's really designing everything around the cloud. And I'll give you an example because it sounds a bit kind of theoretical. So take Roche. Continuous goals. What does the CEO from Roche say? They say, well, people see IT as something technical, but it's all about analyzing how people behave and behavioral kind of change. It is by applying, analyzing the data, big data, right? Looking about it, see how it contributes to the top line of the company. Right? So they are continuously seeing on how can we improve and change Roche on the back of what technology is offering us. So don't do technology for technology, but do technology as an enabler for kind of bigger things. IT experimentation. Right? So their whole community is around labs. So how can we experiment? A great example here is that they're using kind of AI and MPL technology to really crawl data that goes through social media posts from people, etc., to analyze issues and symptoms related to Parkinson's disease. Typically, doing a market screening on what do people say, what symptoms, what treatments, how do they react, etc., takes about 6 months to get any meaningful insight, and is costing thousands of kind of dollars. What they're doing now is that with this technology, on the back of this kind of, well, crawling of big data lakes and applying intelligence on it, they can do this in 11 days. And it costs them about 10K to kind of launch such a study. So this is about really organizing your company on massively using all the benefits of cloud and taking it to the next level, which is benefiting people and curing diseases in a much kind of faster way. So that's what we mean by organizing yourselves kind of around the cloud and continuously kind of see the opportunities that you can derive from it. The fourth one is experience. I think it's moving away from a transaction and an experience. Shopping should not be about buying trousers or about kind of buying a new pair of shoes, which I both hate, by the way, but it is about entering a shop and providing you with an experience. Great example here is like Sephora. What Sephora is saying, well, you can buy everything kind of over the internet, so that's not how you differentiate. But what Sephora is doing, they offer you an experience in the shops. So you can scan your face, it will discover the tint or the color of your skin. It will come up with recommendations about makeup, like what looks good, what doesn't kind of go together. Based on your final choices, they will kind of also enrich the algorithms behind it. They come up with more accurate predictions and more accurate recommendations for the people in the shop. So it's all about not buying something, but providing you with an experience where you feel valued and where you like coming to the shop because it's something more than buying. So this is really about what we kind of see, a good example of how Sephora is creating experiences. So in summary, about continuity here, don't stop after operation. There's so much more in it. And it's not about a cloud, but remember, it's about the rain and the value that the rain brings to the planet. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Koen. And right on time. You're spot on. This is really cool. Perfect time. This is military timing. That's the Belgian way of working. Very nice. And the good news is you're gonna no, but they don't know. They don't know, Koen. Let's just I don't know. Belgians are really strict in their timing. Thank you so much. And of course, the good news is you're going to stick around with us because we have the panel discussion and we're going to continue on the future of cloud. And I see in our backstage that the other speakers, the panelists,